And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Football on Forever Sports for today's daily football news. It is a Thursday, and we're on the back of some interesting FA Cup results and a couple of interesting Premier League results, and ahead of a very interesting Premier League weekend to come. And we're really entering the business end of the season. The first trophy of the season was won this past weekend by Manchester United. And now we're sort of into the running of all the other competitions. Quarterfinals of the FA Cup. 14 rounds left of the Premier League. I think we're into, quarters or the last 16. I think we're still, obviously, still wrapping the last 16 for the Champions League and stuff like that. So we're now really into the business end. March is sort of the final month before we then into like some very hectic, April, May, finish the season type of weeks. So in the next sort of half an hour, we're going to look at some of the results, with a focus on the FA Cup as well as the Premier League in terms of what happened last weekend, as well as a bit of a look ahead as to what's going to happen this weekend. We'll also do some other sort of general sort of football news, the likes of, what's going to be happening with Graham Potter, with, news of potential replacements popping up. We'll be talking a little bit about, Arsenal, whether they can really go on to win. And we'll sort of begin a bit of a reaction as well to what sort of happened last night. So last night, as I said, we had some FA Cup and we had some Premier League. And let's start with the. I think let's start with the FA Cup, shall we? And this is what actually happened last night. It was the round 5 rounds that was being confirmed, and we saw a round happening last week where Brighton beat Stoke, where Leicester got beaten by Blackburn Rovers, where Fulham beat Leeds, and where Manchester City beat Bristol. We then saw 4 matches last night and some very, very big results. First of all, Grimsby Town beating Southampton 2-1. That is the magic of the FA Cup, isn't it? Results like that are exactly what make the FA Cup so special, is the fact that there are those sort of, upsets that happen. Burnley also getting ahead of Fleetwood Town. Manchester United actually coming back from 1-0 behind, and I think they're still 1-0 down about 74 minutes or so. And completed a very impressive comeback. Alejandro Garnacho, the man scoring the winner in the second eventually, and then just adding a third goal from Fred towards the end. But it didn't look good for Manchester United for a long lot of the game. If we look at then Sheffield beating Tottenham, massive results, and that is really, really poor. And you look at the Spurs side, and they weren't even. It's not even like they completely outplayed. Sheffield just sort of got a lucky goal. Possession was pretty equal. Spurs obviously had plenty more shots, but their shooting was pretty poor last night at the end of the day. And this is the thing about FA Cup. These one leg clashes is that all you got to do is just hang in there for as long as possible, grab that goal, and anything can happen. So those. The fifth round is finished, which means we're now moving to the quarterfinals, and this is what the quarterfinals look like. We've got Brighton taking on Grimsby, Manchester City versus Burnley, Manchester United versus Fulham, Sheffield United versus Blackburn Rovers. It's kind of all shaping up to go one side of Manchester, isn't it? United and City, the two favourites remaining in the tournament. And if we look at how the draw is matched up, however, they cannot meet in the final. It looks like a City if United semi-final is very much on the cards. And the reason that and this is what I was asking in the video, is will Manchester United win another trophy? In the last week, literally in the space of a week, Manchester United beat Barcelona. Once again, coming back from behind, they beat Barcelona to progress into the next round of the Europa. On Sunday, they then beat Newcastle to win the League Cup. Their first trophy in about 7 years, the first trophy under Erik ten Hag. And then last night came from behind to beat West Ham and keep themselves still in the hunt for the FA Cup. So right now, they are very much, one or two favourites for the FA Cup. They are arguably the favourites in the Europa, or at least, one of the top sort of 3-4 sides, potentially going to win it. And they're not really in the title race. But they're close enough behind that if there is a meltdown to happen, because they do have a game in hand, so they can get themselves within 8 points of Arsenal. And if Arsenal do have a bit of a mini meltdown or anything like that, then all of a sudden they could sort of be in that. So competing for 2 trophies Not really, they're not including the Premier League. But yeah, I mean, what a season that would be if United were to go and get 2 trophies this season, or 3 trophies, in Erik ten Hag's debut season. And that's why my question in the poll is, can Manchester United win another trophy this season? Is it feasible? Can they continue the impressive run that they've had, and can they go on to go and add to the silverware collection? And at the end of the day, they've got to. They're such a big club, and they've had so many years of really bad times that now that things are starting to go a bit better, they've got to capitalize. And Erik ten Hag's got a very good thing happening at the club, and if he can really sort of galvanize the side to come good, then why not? And let's see what they can do. In terms of the Premier League, we also saw some Premier League action last night, and we saw Arsenal beating Everton 4-0 and Liverpool beating Southampton 2-0. And Southampton often become a bit of a banana peel for Liverpool in recent weeks. So it's important for them to get their wins there. And we've now then got Manchester City taking on Newcastle United. That is this weekend, and then Chelsea versus United. So we'll go through the weekend's fixtures in a little bit. That match happening on Saturday. But this is how the Premier League table currently looks. Now, the important thing is the likes of Newcastle, Manchester United, Liverpool, all having a game in hand on the rest. So Manchester United win the game in hand, they can go up to 52 points. They'll be 3 points behind City, 8 points behind Arsenal. If Newcastle were to win both their games in hand, they would actually go up to 47 points and actually be ahead of Spurs. So Newcastle still very much in contention to potentially get that, as you said, 4th spot, Champions League spot. Newcastle currently in the Europa League spot, Liverpool currently in the Conference League spot. Chelsea, they are in big trouble, and very, very big rumours that Graham Potter is potentially facing the sack. And probably has to be kind of facing the sack. They spend so much, but at the same time, people are saying, well, they've invested so much money where the performance, but at the same time, you've invested all that money. Surely you kind of almost want to back the manager to try and then use it and use his players to come good. So at the moment, Arsenal, they went through a bit of a blip but got through. So 3 wins in a row. That was very important for them, especially that Leicester City 1-0 and beating Everton quite comfortably last night was important, because before then they had dropped a lot of points. City over here, this loss over here to Spurs on the same day that Arsenal lost was massive, because they had won this game, they'd be on 58 points. They then dropped points here against Forest. If they won that game as well, they'd actually be ahead. So City have once again opened the door for Arsenal to actually go. So here it is, to actually go ahead of them. But in terms of the fixtures to come this weekend, this is what they're looking like. Arsenal taking on Bournemouth. So Arsenal got a very interesting run in, because they've got a couple of easy clashes, but then things get quite hectic quite quickly. This weekend is the big one though, Liverpool versus Manchester United, and that is happening on Sunday. We've then got Wolves versus Spurs, as well as City versus Newcastle. That's again another pretty big important clash, because once again, if City want to try and apply pressure to Arsenal and keep themselves in the title race, they can't afford to buckle in this game. Chelsea versus Leeds. Chelsea absolutely desperate for some wins and some points, and if they don't get them, then they're going to be in some pretty big trouble. Again, and in terms of the relegation zone, Everton currently sitting in 18th, 21 points, 1 point behind Leeds. Leeds do have a game in hand, as do West Ham. So these two win games in hand, and Everton are looking even more likely to potentially go down, which would be quite sad for a club of Everton's stature, but they've really gotten it wrong in the last few years. And the chickens are coming back to roost, unfortunately for them, and they could very well find themselves in the Championship. And look, they brought in Sean Dyche, and I think that he's, especially if you do go down to the Championship, he's the right type of person to be able to get you there, get you back. But at the end of the day, they're not a side who should be down in the Championship. West Ham, for all when you think of how good they've been in the last couple of seasons, to be sitting in the relegation race is pretty incredible, to be honest. And then you've got the likes of Leeds as well, who might actually be risking going back down to the Championship. So things are not things are very interesting in the Premier League, if nothing else. You can't argue that things aren't interesting at the moment. And I think we're going to a pretty defining month coming up ahead, in March. Because I think this is a month where you have a good month, you can get yourself out of the relegation battle. You can put yourself firmly in a title race. You can throw away a title, if you have a bad month as well. So that's the thing about sort of months like this. We always talk about, it's almost like the penultimate game. You talk about sometimes, a like a first leg, second leg tie, sometimes that first leg is actually more important than the second leg. Sometimes a couple of 3-4 games before the final day are actually more important than the final day, because you can win. You can, if you have that run, for example, then all of a sudden maybe that final day isn't as crucial to the final sort of result, and that's why I think it's going to be interesting to sort of see what sort of movements we do see in the table over the next couple of weeks. Is this potentially going to be the time where Arsenal fall apart, or do Arsenal really kick into gear and actually really come good? What's going to happen, and what other teams can sort of make some movements across the league, as well as for both not only at the top but also at the bottom. But yeah, in terms of some news, so Graham Potter under a lot of pressure, but we're just going to go through some of the headlines. There's some transfer news from Manchester United, with Marcel Sabitzer potentially looking to join them permanently. It is possible that loan deal could be made permanent, and as a United fan, I wouldn't mind that. I thought he looked really good at some stages last night. Obviously still need to sort of really fit him into the system, but again, I think he looks pretty comfortable, and I think he could offer the side quite a lot. Going through some of the other sort of rumors, there's been an update on the Stamford Bridge rebuild. Apparently, they're considering knocking down Stamford Bridge and building a whole new stadium on the current site as sort of the leading option. Apparently, Todd Bowley wants Chelsea Stadium to be one of the best in England and Europe has to offer. Apparently, the project is set to cost 1.5 billion, and 2030 would be the earliest date they would actually move into that stadium. So, yeah, we're looking at 7 years in time when that could happen. So it's very much a project for the future. But I think they do need to move into from Stamford Bridge. I think it's an iconic stadium and all that. But at the end of the day, you got to keep up with the times, don't you? And there are certain stadiums that are very out of date. I think Stamford Bridge is probably one of them. So once again, interesting to sort of see what will happen there. Some sort of the transfer boost is, apparently Arsenal are once again monitoring Declan Rice. But for me, what has been quite interesting today, from terms of a news perspective, is we are seeing lots and lots of rumours about the Chelsea job. Now, Graham Potter is very, very much on the brink, for me, of getting sacked. He's had such a tumultuous time, such a terrible time at Chelsea so far. He's under a lot of pressure. There's no doubt about that. That's not even an opinion. That's just a fact. He is under pressure. I think he himself is under pressure, knows he's under pressure, and it's almost said so as much, or it's almost come across when he's given some press conferences. The other day he was sort of comparing himself to Mikel Arteta, saying, well, at one stage people wanted Mikel Arteta to be sacked, and now look at Arsenal now. But, for me, that's sort of very much quite desperate sort of talk. So all of a sudden there's the big rumours, well, if he leaves, at the back moment, they won one win in the last 11 games. Who replaces him? And the two leading candidates are apparently Luis Enrique and Zinedine Zidane, and those are two proper coaches. If Arsenal, if those are even remote possibilities, I think they'd be very, very tempted to give Graham Potter the sack, and to move him along and try and get a new sort of blood in, if they can get the likes of Luis Enrique, Zinedine Zidane, proven coaches, proven winners, elite mentality type coaches who have coached elite teams. And it's always interesting, isn't it, when we talk about elite coaches and what it means to be an elite coach and what it takes to be an elite coach. In that, Graham Potter did some very good things at Brighton. There's no doubt about it, but it's not an elite team. It's not a team that should be challenging for titles, and therefore the players you have are very different. The sort of environment you have, the fan expectation is very different, and I think we've now seen them move into a very competitive, very hostile environment, in that they just demand success, and he's just not coping at the moment. And that's why the names of Luis Enrique and Zinedine Zidane are being thrown around, because these are managers who have, Enrique won the Champions League with Barcelona. Zidane won the Champions League 3 times with Real Madrid. They've managed the best players in the world. Quite literally, Zidane's managed Ronaldo, Enrique's managed Messi. So they've been in elite clubs and in like the most sort of hard pressure environments and thrived. Graham Potter's never been in that environment. And some managers can make the step up. Eddie Howe. I always rated him as a really good manager. For years, I said, I'll tell you why I wouldn't even mind giving him the United job. And because of the stuff that he was doing at Bournemouth. But it's Bournemouth, and everybody's going, that's not the same type of club. But he's now gone to a Newcastle project, and he's thriving. He is thriving. And that Newcastle project, I mean, they were 90 minutes away from a trophy this season. They're potentially knocking on the door of Champions League. And yes, they spent a lot of money. They brought in some good players, but they haven't gone and brought in, top any sort of top 20 players in the world. But I think very much he's the type of person he can get buy-in with his players. He's a very good manager, and I think that he can become an elite manager at this level because I think he's got the right sort of personality and the right sort of traits to get the best out of certain players. So yeah, lots to play for in the football world. Transfer rumors are obviously a bit quiet at the moment. We're sitting here in March, but those will start picking up a lot next month. Spurs as well, very much for me. They're in trouble. They've had a very nebulous season, and right now, from a Premier League point of view, are sitting okay. They're looking good at this stage to potentially, to get Champions League qualification. But they kind of rely on other people to do them a favor to really give them the best chance, because Newcastle are right behind them if they beat City, for example. And Spurs not making top four would be a massive dent in the confidence, and especially when you think the likes of, Heung-min Son has not played particularly well this season. Will he renew? Will he stay on? Harry Kane is always that sort of that ongoing, or what if? Will he move on? When will he move on? And if Spurs drop out of the Champions League spots and sort of finish 5th, 6th, I wouldn't be surprised if we do start seeing some of the sort of Spurs better players moving on, as well as potentially Antonio Conte as well, saying, I actually no longer believe in this project and I'm going to walk away. So they've also got to really shape up or ship off. But so just a bit of a recap of what's going on right now in the football world. Yes, it's some very cool FA Cup draws and results last night. Important victories for Liverpool and Arsenal in the Premier League. And then this weekend, just stacks more action coming your way. And the next week, hopefully, we'll also be getting back to some Champions League and Europa League. And as we get back to European football, as we hit sort of the crunch time, really, in the football season. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven. I'll chat to you soon.